Hello everyone, welcome. In this video, I'll share with you about how to create sacred altars as art. And altars historically were always places where the divine and human worlds interacted. Altars were places of exchange, communication, and influence. God responded actively to altar activity, and altars were also a place of remembrance and reverence. They remind us to bow and surrender the ego shield. We can come into relationship with the energies of the altar, working with the elements, the directions. We can work with the archetypes and symbols on the altar. And the altar speaks to the mind and soul. The altar establishes priority to the mind and a sense of security to the mind. The altar, like a mantra, is a tool to direct the mind to something greater. And once the mind is convinced that connecting to the divine is priority, our path becomes easier. You become victorious of the mind, and you will be victorious in your world, flowing with natural ease. I create both small, personal, intuitive altars and group altars. The small, personal, intuitive altars are infused with meaning, intuitive, and creative flow. They're directed to a specific personal project or personal transformation most often. However, the altars usually also include others indirectly and are always for the good of all. And the group altar, or traditional altars, speak to a group vision. Many indigenous traditions have a set pattern for their altars, and they'll assign an animal or an element to each direction. The symbolism can become very elaborate. Different traditions put different meanings to the directions. For example, I noticed traditions that are south of the equator will put fire to the north, while traditions north of the equator will put the fire to the south. If we look at religious groups throughout the world, we also find that they almost always have altars full of symbolism. So altars are cross-cultural, and they go back to the beginning of time. And I encourage you to ask yourself what your heart wishes to create as a sacred altar, and ask the divine to express through you as you create your altar. Beauty is important in altar creation. Of course, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Spirit loves beauty, and the path of joy and beauty are intertwined. Beauty invites us to evolve in its direction, and beauty can educate the soul. Beauty can be therapeutic. And soon I'll put up some images of altars that I use just to show you some examples. My altars include objects of personal and community significance for me. The objects have power in that they are symbols that have meaning for me. Symbols hold great power because they hold condensed truth, and they speak to our conscious and especially to our subconscious. And I encourage you to find or use objects that have significance for you, and make this like a spiritual, artistic project from your heart. So now I'll pull up the images. And this first example I'm showing is a small altar that I made for the elements. The base is made out of petrified wood. At the center, we've got the elemental cross. When the four elements are in balance, we can ascend to our center sun. The central sun is represented by the clear, large crystal to the top. And then I have other stones here to the right side symbolizing the different elements. And I have the starfish, 5 points, 5 elements that include here ether. The second example, It was an altar that I made for a project. When I began the project Unisom, I wanted to connect deeply to my intention and draw in the energy from my higher self related to this project. So at the center, I created a nest. And the nest holds 3 golden eggs, which are the 3 golden eggs of Unisom, or 3 pillars. That includes deep relaxation through Yoga Nidra. The second pillar is meditation through different traditions. For example, Nad Yoga meditation, Kundalini Yoga meditation, and others. The third pillar is sound healing, biosonic sound healing. And to the bottom of the nest, I have kyanite. The kyanite represents balance, harmony. The kyanite also represents the connection between the physical and spiritual worlds and self-realization. The butterflies, it's a more obvious symbol related to the flight of the soul, freedom, beauty, lightness. And then I have the crystals around, bringing in energy and beauty to the project. The base of this altar is rose quartz. The butterflies are also rose quartz, and the 2 corners amethyst. And the next example, this here is our community drum altar. Originally, this altar was square. I was using a fabric from the Andes. This current fabric, it looks like the coat of many colors. I believe it comes from India. And this altar I've used for 6 years. However, it's not physically permanent. I bring it out every time we have a drum class, and then I carefully, with respect, put it to sleep in its basket when we're not in class. And I'll show you from above and explain what's on this altar. To the top we have feathers symbolizing air. And to the right of the feathers we have the bee, which also floats in the air. It's an insect that flies in the air, has wings. It's very symbolic to drummers, to the drum priestesses, to community, to our community. And to the left of the feathers, I have the dragonfly, which is symbolic to how I began drumming, how I began the path of meditative drumming. To the left of the dragonfly, we have 3 leaves. So now I'm coming down towards earth. The leaves represent the transition between air and earth. These are basil leaves. Traditionally, they would be cacao leaves. Right below the leaves, I have sage. And then down to the left, I have amethyst symbolizing earth, a drum symbolizing rhythm and earth, a couple more crystals coming down to a shell, and a crystal container that holds water, another shell. Then coming up towards spiritual fire, I have the symbols. And then to the right, the spiritual fire. To the left of the spiritual fire, I have again another symbol for the bee. This is an ancient symbol that comes from Crete in Greece. At the center of the altar, I have the fire that unifies us, the fire of one, and I have the 4 hearts around the fire. You can only see 3 hearts here because the 4th one is behind the candle. One more example. Here's an altar that I have in my piano/meditation room. And the objects come from Arizona in the US, so they're made of clay, most of the objects. In the center, I have the central altar of the altar with the heart. And the heart has a seed inside, so when I shake it, it makes a noise. Symbolically, I pick up the heart and I shake it, symbolizing awakening my heart space. Have another seed shaker to the front. have a lot of symbolism on this altar of unifying opposites, alchemy of unification. The twin flames, I have to the front left, bees, the front right, sacred stones. So those are just some examples to inspire you. And I have these altars in my studio, in my home. And I also have a greater altar, which can be considered my studio and my home, because they are also set up very much in the same way as an altar, so that everyone who enters becomes nourished by the spiritual environment of my home and of my studio. I like to create spaces that remind me of my highest values. So the images you just saw, they're altars within altars. Much like arriving to the inner chamber of a temple. Now, there's no right or wrong way to make an altar. However, it's important to understand the meaning of what you place on the altar and to always create the altar according to your highest values. Be aware of your intention, and of course the intention is coming from love and caring for the greatest good of all. The presence of the altar should evoke depth of presence and focus. The most important is that it feels sacred to you, that it has meaning to you and to your overarching values. I encourage you to explore ways to make your altar significant to you, special to you, with meaning and creativity. You can keep the same altar for many years or even a lifetime, or you may have altars that you adjust or recreate or create just for a short period of time, maybe just for a day, maybe for 11 days, 21 days, 40 days, for specific energies you're pulling in or a specific goal. And I encourage you to make your own altar plan with objects, again, that have meaning specifically for you, and that you enjoy the process of intuitive expression aligned to your highest values, dreams, and goals. And may your altar creations always be a sacred experience that bring you joy and prosperity. Many blessings to you, and see you soon.